one of the sons. I'd like to call Mickey to the stand here and be kind, be firm, but be fair.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who attended. I see some friends in the back there that's good to see again. I would like to thank the Shamrock Club for sponsoring this hot dog roast, where we get a chance to roast a true hot dog. Also, on behalf of the entire O'Brien family, I'd like to extend a special thank you to past presidents Joe Connolly and Ed Kelly for their efforts in making this roast possible. Before we begin, I have one question. Is there anyone in this audience tonight who has not heard a joke from Gene O'Brien? Anyone? Show of hands? I didn't think so.
Dumb guy back there.
He's heard it too. Last night, I had a dream that I died and went to heaven. And when I arrived at the pearly gates, I was greeted by St. Peter, who invited me in. He said to me, "Mickey, you have faithfully served the Lord on earth. You have earned your way to heaven." Then he paused and said, "Besides, being a son of Gene O'Brien's, I know you've been doing a lifelong penance." We then proceeded down a long, narrow hallway. On the walls of both sides of the hallway were clocks, from ceiling to floor, hundreds of them. But they were all moving at different speeds. Some clocks were moving very fast, some clocks were moving slow, and some were barely moving at all. And underneath each clock there was a nameplate. And I saw Mr. Maloney's clock, and it was moving a little faster than some. I saw Mike McConaughey's clock, and it was moving about average speed. I saw Pat Burns' clock, and it was barely moving at all. When we got to the end of the hallway, I asked St. Peter, I said, "St. Peter, what is the significance of all these clocks, and why are they all moving at different speeds?" And St. Peter said, "Those clocks represent every time that person told a bad joke, the minute hand on their clock would move one tick. That's why some are moving fast and some are moving slow." Then I said, "Well, I've seen just about everybody's clock, but I didn't see Gene O'Brien's clock. Do you have it up here?" St. Peter said, "Gene's clock? Oh yeah, we have it, but we keep it in the back. We use it for a fan." I consider myself very lucky to have grown up as one of Gene's sons. There are a couple reasons I feel this way. One, because of the number of children in our family, I always had someone to play with. My dad, on the other hand, grew up with only one brother and one sister. And when they weren't around, the only one he had to play with was, well, let's just say he was glad he was born a boy. Another reason I feel lucky to be one of Gene's sons, I think, is I grew up in an environment full of laughter and humor. After all, to have 11 children within 10 years and start at the ages of 30 and 35, you would have to have a great sense of humor. If not, you would have to be crazy and oversexed. I assure you, my father is not crazy. One of the things I remember about growing up was Dad always enjoyed a good joke and a good laugh. One joke Dad liked to play on us went like this. He would get dressed for work in the morning. He would put on his shirt and tie. He would put on his shoes, but he would leave his pants off. And as he was walking to the front door, he would announce, "Well, I'm off to work." Us kids would notice he had no pants, and we would immediately stop him and say, "Dad, you don't have any pants on." He would look down, notice he didn't have any pants on, and say, "Oh, I did forget my pants." He would turn around, put his pants on, then head out the door. We all got a good laugh and found it pretty funny. In fact, he would play the same joke with some frequency. But the biggest laugh we ever got was when he tried to play this joke one morning. announced he was going out the door, didn't have his pants on, and we didn't stop him. No, he didn't come back in either. Rumor has it, he sold more beer that one day than he sold all money. My dad has an interesting way of teaching his children life lessons. He would often use a one-line sentence to make a point. When he wanted to demonstrate the importance of being honest and doing the right thing, he would say, "Remember, you're an O'Brien." And that was to remind us whatever we did not only reflected upon ourselves, but it reflected upon the family as well. And Gene O'Brien is very proud of his family. So proud, he once spent $1,000 to look up our family tree. He spent $10,000 to keep it quiet. If Dad wanted to demonstrate the importance of a positive attitude and being happy, he would say, "Live each day as though it were your last, because one day you're going to be right." Judging by the number of children he has, I think it's safe to say he used this one on Mom a lot. Another one of his sayings was, if God made anything better than sex, he kept it for himself. Does anybody doubt he used this one on Mom? When it came to politics, the only advice my dad ever gave me was when I became eligible to vote. And I asked him, I said, "Dad, do I have to vote Democrat?" He said, "No, Mickey, you can live wherever you want." And with that philosophy and that many kids, now you know why the local politicians call him Mr. Precinct. My line of work at times requires me to speak in front of large groups. So I asked my dad for some advice on how not to be nervous. He said, "Mick, just imagine that the entire audience is sitting in their underwear. By the time you get to the end of your talk, you won't have time to be nervous." And he's right, I tried it, it works. The only problem is, when he uses that technique, and by the time he gets to the end of his talk, the audience really is in their underwear. And in closing, I'd just like to say, Dad, thanks for being the great dad you are. And your name isn't Oscar Mayer, but you're my favorite hot dog.
References to the Democrat. One of his oldest friends. And I feel very proud to bring up here to the speaker's stand past president of the year of the Shamrock Club, Robert Maloney. Bob?
I'm not have to worry about getting put out of the will, so I won't be as nice. But before this meeting got started, there was a phone call came in from New York City, and I guess Gene wasn't apprised yet of what transpired there. The call came from New York City from a lady named Monica. She said she was sorry she couldn't be here to give her side of the story, but she had a prior commitment with somebody who just moved to New York from Washington, D.C. I mean, that could have been ugly, wow. You know, Gene talks a lot about his Pittsburgh background, and he makes a lot of saying that he thought girls were nothing but soft boys when he was in Pittsburgh. And he was also told before he left Pittsburgh that pretty soon he would meet Miss Wright. Well, he went on to Cleveland, and he found out real quick after he met Mary Jane that girls weren't soft boys, and also that he had met Miss Wright. He didn't know until 3 days after the wedding was over that her full name was Miss Always Right. Fortunately for him, during a lucid moment, there haven't been a whole hell of a lot of that. He realized that was a good philosophy. He accepted it, and look where it's got him. I mean, hey. So they moved on from Cleveland to Mansfield. They started their family, and then he used up all the new ears that there were in Mansfield. So he had to move on down to Columbus. A much bigger source of new ears. And once he got here in Columbus, he was working all over the place. He would range down to Portsmouth, Marion, all over the state. But he came home every night. With 11 children in 10 days, you can be sure he was home every night. But again, you think about that 11 in 10, he must have done some lunches too. Now, whether you consider Gene famous or infamous, his modus operandi is the same. The jaw goes flapping, the tongues are clacking, the gums are bumping, and the words come spilling out. He's always ready to tell you a story, a joke, or an outright lie. In fact, I've heard Mary Jane look him right in the eye and say, "Do you ever lie to me?" And he says, "Only when I have to." But Gene is always, he's never met a pair of ears that he didn't like or a matched pair that he didn't like. And when he's a greeter at St. James, when those matched pairs comes in, he grabs hold of them. I heard a woman say recently, "My God, he had me in a death grip." He has another saying he uses it on women when he can't call their name right off. He says, "I didn't recognize you with your clothes on." And he gets away with that jazz. There's hardly a mark on that face. But he did that one day at a St. Vincent de Paul meeting, just when Monsignor Corcoran was walking by. He said to this woman, "I didn't recognize you with your clothes on." Monsignor Corcoran wasn't sure who he was talking about. He turned around and threatened to excommunicate him right then and there. But he talked his way out of it and even got a general absolution out of that Monsignor. How he did that, I wish I knew. But speaking of the clergy, you know, he boasts a lot about it. He knows all these different clergy from all over the diocese. Well, one March 16th, the clergy down at St. Patrick's Church, those good Dominicans, were having confessions for any of the lads who had to tidy up a few details before the big day. So Gene and I were in line there, and he was ahead of me. He went into confessional. Things were proceeding as they normally do in a confessional, and all of a sudden the priest said, "What? How many of you are there in there? You did that all by yourself? Lord have mercy." And as Gene left the confessional and headed down the aisle, the priest leaned out and said, "Go forth and sin no more, at least until tomorrow afternoon." You know, people say that you can't shut him up once he gets going. You know, once that motor starts running, it is pretty hard to shut it off. But one day we were downtown. I don't know what sort of tomfoolery we were involved in, but it got kind of late in the lunch hour, so we went to Willie Plank's at Whittier and High. Willie said, well, the waitresses were gone, but his daughter Chris would get us some food if we'd go have a seat. We did. She took our order, brought the drinks back, and just as she brought the drinks back, he gestured towards me and looked right at her and says, "Between us, we've got 18 kids. And she says, "You two must have a wonderful marriage." The jaw stopped working, the tongue couldn't wiggle. Chris plank through him for a 10-yard loss. It took 2 cups of coffee till the motor could start running again. But you know, in the morning, we quite commonly go to Northland Mall to get some exercise. They let us in there before the mall opens for business, and we walk around through there. Well, as soon as you go in Northland, you're immediately aware that there's a lot of geezers, a lot of geezies. Oh. Lots of geezies. And Gene has some quaint names for them, like Miss Speed, Miss Smooth, Miss T, Miss Jeans, Miss A. I mean, pertinent points that... Well, this one day we're walking around through there. There's 3 geezies ahead of us. And just as we get to a place where we're going to make a turn, they start talking to another geezee. So as we come around there, hey, the geezies are everywhere. Just as we come around the corner there, Gene says to her, "Excuse us, girls." One of the geezies says, "Did you hear that? He called us girls." Another one says, "You made my day." And he fires back, "I'd rather make your night." She then said, "Hey, big boy, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about this." There wasn't a word said. He grabbed me by the arm. We went down through that mall. When we got around the next corner, he says, "Did you hear that old broad? She's crazy." Last fall, Gene's children rented an RV, and they took him over to Pittsburgh to visit the old homestead and also to take him to his 65th high school class reunion. And one of the amazing things was that he knew the first and last name. He knew most of the first and last name of all the attendees from his class. He was the only one that showed up. And one of the people there from another class said, "Oh, it's a shame that none of Gene's playmates showed up to be with him on this occasion." And the chairman piped up and says, "Oh, that's not a problem. He always did like to play with himself."
Let's move up to the next one of the O'Briens. I'd like to bring Tony, or Anthony, call me Tony.
I'd like to thank the Shamrock Club for honoring my dad tonight and raising the money for St. Vincent de Paul and St. James. It's really been a great treat to have everybody here tonight. I'm going to start off and tell you right away, some of the jokes I'm going to tell, I stole from my dad. But if you're going to steal from anybody, steal from the master. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. My brother Mickey earlier alluded to, has anyone here not heard a joke by Gene O'Brien? I have a different take on that. We say, Jesus says, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I." With Gene, where there's one, there's an audience. Now, a couple things about my dad. I was thinking about how to describe him, and both these are true historical facts. He was sick in the hospital, and the first 2 people through the hospital door was his priest and his bookie. I'm not sure what order that was, but they both made that statement. Another historical fact, and in fact, if you can look this up on the internet, it's also in encyclopedias if you look up Gene O'Brien. He single-handedly ensured that the human race would never die. Now, when you think about my dad, you think about all his children. 11 children. My dad didn't get married till he was 35. Started had 11 kids in 10 years, 10 boys and 1 girl. And you think, oh my God, how do you think of these names for kids? You know, there's been a ton of names to do it. Take, for instance, my brother Brian. Brian O'Brien. A beautiful name, an easy name to remember. Brian, stand up for the folks. This is my brother Brian. Brian is a big, strong, strapping young man, a beautiful man. But doesn't look why'd you name him Brian? He said, Tony, that's the only way I can remember who the milkman's son was. Now, we do have one sister. He's one daughter, Ruth. Supposedly she's a girl, but we don't know that for yet, sure. I said, Dad, how'd you get Ruth? What happened? He said, Tony, one night I wore my hat to bed. Now, it's going to get a little blue here, so I'm not holding it too bad. My dad is 82 years old. And people come up to my dad and say, Gene, how many kids you have? And my dad says, 11 so far. Now, I know this is a nice occasion tonight, but I hate to break the news. It's going to come to a shock to my brothers, especially my mom and my sister, that my dad does have other children. But it was long ago, and sadly they died and they're not here. Their names, Cain and Abel. Dad, I'm going to teach you about sex because, you know, a lot of your jokes are about sex. And basically, sex is just a distant memory for you now. Sorry about that, Mom. What as my brother Victor alluded to, you know, we're the Shamrock Club. Most of the people here are Irish. And, you know, Irish don't need Viagra. All they need is a glass of water. It's a beautiful thing. But one time I said to my dad, Dad, you started having kids late and everything like that, there wasn't Viagra back then, what'd you do for a boost and effort or anything like that? And he said, Tony, nothing, I just drank water. I said, okay. About a year ago, he had his gallbladder out, and he came out of surgery kind of groggy. I said, I'm going to pump him for some information now. I said, Dad, what'd you do? You need that extra boost, that extra effort. He said, Tony, I did what we did back in Pittsburgh. We had tape and popsicle sticks. Now I know why. When I was a young kid, I used to go to the store. My mom would whisper to me, Tony, get a lot of popsicles. Anyway, there's a lot of people here tonight. I want to thank a lot of folks. My brother Franny and his wife Judy came in tonight for the roast, and my brother Robert came in from Cleveland. We have a lot of old friends back here. Bob Maloney, been a great, great friend to my dad for years. Couldn't ask for a better guy. You know what? This is starting to sound like a eulogy. But then again, my mom said he's been dead for years. Now, I'm just going to leave it with one last thing here. I don't know if you noticed recently, but my dad gave some hearing aids. He needed to get some hearing aids. And, that's an oxymoron. A man who doesn't listen with hearing aids. It's like, a screen on a submarine. It's just useless. But the the straw that broke the camel's back is, my dad had to go to the doctor's office with my mom. He had to have some tests done. And the doctor said to my dad, Gene, we have to do some tests on you. We need a stool, urine, and semen specimen. My dad said, what? And again, the doctor said to him, Gene, we need a stool, urine, and semen specimen. And my dad didn't know what he said. Finally, my mom looked at him and said, Gene, they need your underwear. Thanks a lot.
Our next speaker is another O'Brien, yet another O'Brien. I guess they're coming from all over. They're coming in with handcarts, I guess. And I'd like to bring now to the microphone Victor O'Brien.
Thank you, Joe. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to thank the Shamrock Club for allowing us to have a good time tonight. And I want to apologize in advance to anybody I might offend. Great, you just gave me some more material. Okay, my name is Victor Eugene O'Brien. I'm named after my dad. And a lot of people wondered, seeing how I'm the number 8 son, number 9 child, why he waited so long to name somebody after him. Well, this is a story I heard. As you know, my dad's proud of all of us. Anybody says, oh, look at the boys, and he'd say, mother's features, father's fixtures. Mother's features, father's, maybe we can name him after me. So, I'm not the man my dad is, but I try to be. My dad is very unique. They broke the mold the day he was born, and then rumor has it they beat the hell out of the mold maker. When my dad was born, the doctor looked at him and smacked his mother. That happened the day I was born. Doctor looked at me and he smacked my mom. But then my dad smacked my mom. And the nurse said, why'd you do that? And my dad said, it's her fault she got pregnant. And what do you mean it's her fault she got pregnant? He goes, I was only poking at her in fun and she took me seriously. This is 2009. I want to thank him for stuff he's taught me. And one thing he taught me was, he says, Victor, you never hit a woman. You kick them. So one night, my wife and I got into it. And I remember these words my dad gave me. So I didn't hit her, I kicked her. And you know what she did? She beat the hell out of me. That's got to be some of the worst advice he's ever given. But that's a true story. My dad and I have a lot in common. Like last week, I went out with a telephone operator, and she reversed the charges. I think I'll sue next week. He said that's happened to him before. Right, you've been out with the telephone operator and she's reversed the charges? Yeah, he's told me that. Another thing is, my dad's gay. My dad's a gay Irishman. A gay Irishman likes women more than whiskey. But I see the Shamrock Club is lightened up and letting everybody in. We were in here last night setting up, and my dad and I ran into a cute couple, Michael Fitzpatrick and Patrick Fitzmichael. But we have, my dad and I have a lot in common. One thing that we have in common is sure my kids, at least I know my kids, have always known me to have white hair. So that's things like that we have in common. But like they say, when there's snow on the roof, there's a fire in the oven. Something like that. And it works. Another thing is too is my dad's getting old. And,
Get it.
and right, my dad is old. And my oldest son Joseph notices that. We were at the house the other day, we were watching the Super Bowl, and he came up to me and said, "Dad, Grandpa's pretty old, isn't he?" I said, "Well, yeah, he's old. He's 82 years old. What brings this up?" He goes, "Well, he farted." I said, "Well, that's going to happen, Joseph. It just doesn't happen to old people. It's harder for them to hold it, but it just, it happens." He said, "But Dad, he farted dust." My dad's sexy. At least he thinks he's sexy. The new thing now with the old people is Viagra. But you've heard my dad say, "I don't need Viagra. All I need is a glass of water." Well, my dad is old and he's taking pills every day. So he's got one of them pill boxes, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And every week when my mom throws the pills in for him, she always puts in a quarter piece of Viagra. And he doesn't know the difference. He takes red ones, green ones, blue ones. He don't know what the hell he takes. We tell him to take it, he takes it. But the reason she does that is every once in a while he'll get in that mood and go out and eat Viagra and take his glass of water. And she has that little quarter of Viagra in there to make sure he doesn't pee on his shoes. Criteria he looks for women. And my dad only has one criteria for women. As long as she's breathing. I find the same thing too, as long as they're breathing, it's great. Some of my advice that my dad has given me has been effective, like candy standy, but liquor's quicker. That's been a good one for me. We were playing football one day out by the house. I was out with the brothers. We were playing football, and I was just doing it all. I was the quarterback, and I'd fake this, keep the ball. I was throwing it, I was catching. I was doing it all. And I never gave the ball to anybody. I was just doing it all. My dad had enough of that. And he said, "Victor, next play, give the ball to the ball carrier." So next play, I'm back there, and I take it to the ball carrier. I run around, I do what I want. And he yells at me and says, "Hey, don't you understand English? Don't you know what a ball carrier is?" I said, "Yeah, a jockstrap." Boy, he could have killed me that day if he could have caught me. But, no, I was a ball carrier in high school, and my dad used to come to all my games. I played football, and my dad came to every game, and I want to thank him for that. And, I'd run out on the field and just look up in the stands, and sure enough, there he'd be. I'd see him standing up there. Yeah, all right, Dad, he's there. He was there for every game I was at. A lot of people thought my dad was Italian, because he talked with his hands. And I think that's why he has so many Italian friends, because he speaks their language. But, you know, like I said, my dad came to all my games, and he was proud of me. I'd have that big run, and I'd look up the stands, and there'd be my dad. That's my boy, that's my boy. And then next play, take it in, touchdown. You know, look up, there he is. That's my boy, that's my boy. And he always let me know he knew what was going on. Because when I fumble, I look up there and he'd be going, that's a her boy, that's a her boy. So he always knew, you know, showed me when I was like him and when I was like my mom. But I want to thank him for always being there for me. And, you know, a lot of those brothers were sports, you know, did well. You know, John was a state miler, held a record long time. Franny was all state football hunk, won state wrestling. And I said, you know, Dad, did you do any sports in high school? He said, yeah, I was a sportsman. I said, well, what'd you do? He goes, I was a broad jumper. And, you know, it had to be hard for my mom and dad, you know, raising 11 kids. You know, 11 kids, and geez, I mean, I got 3, I know what it's like, I mean, 11 is, but, you know, we always had a roof on our head, we always had food, and my dad always made sure we changed our underwear. You say, Mickey, you change with Victor. Underwear. It didn't matter if anybody changed it with anyway. Okay, that's I want to thank my dad, because you know, he's not a racist, and he taught me that. And you know, he coached one of my basketball teams when I was a kid at St. James, and he practiced what he preached. He got us all together before he says, listen, I don't care if you're white or you're black, you know, for all I care, you're all green. So I want the dark green guys over here and the light green. Okay, but I do want to thank him, and you know, since my mom can't be up here to roast him, I just want to close with this one. We were at Mickey's house this past summer, and Mickey's got a garden. One of the things he is growing is potatoes. So his little girl, Danielle, got these little potatoes. I mean, they're small little potatoes, and she said, look, Uncle Vic, look at these little potatoes. And my mom came over and she said, look, Mom, look at these little potatoes. And she said, those remind me of your dad's balls. I said, Dad's balls are this small? She goes, no, they're that dirty. You know, the hot dog, you know,
we have down here at the Shamrock Club. We had for years and years and years. Past member of the year, he's been on almost everything. When I think about it, he comes from a large family, beautiful sons and daughters, and I always get a nice kiss from the daughters on St. Patrick's Day, which is not too far away, folks, about 35 days from now. I'd like to bring now up to the speaker stand a good friend of Brian's, a good friend of yours, and a good friend of mine, and the Shamrock Club, Mike McConaughey. I really feel honored to be here. Sad to say, these kids use most of my material. It's amazing, you've been around your dad your whole life. Everything they said I've heard the last 2 years. I don't know if I can add much to it, but I'll give it a try. And I'd like to add a disclaimer like was earlier done. If I say anything to offend anybody, I really don't mean it. Unless it's Gene, I really don't give it to him. I really feel privileged to be here. We got over 1,000 members in the Shamrock Club, and 980 people requested to roast Gene. The other 20 live out of state. Gene and I have several things in common. We're both of Irish descent, we're both Catholic, we both have large families, but all my children are legitimate. After saints, and they do have some, some good names. They've been brought up different names and everything, You got Francis. Francis is a holy saint, like all the animals and everything, Somebody alluded to Brian earlier. Well, that took a lot of thought. Brian O'Brien. Poor kid went to school. They said, "What's your name?" He said, "Brian O'Brien." They thought he stuttered. He was in slow motor. Boy, what's he naming? Ryan. Ryan. Must be contagious. Now, Gene did a lot of traveling, and I don't know, some of these names of these kids that might have to do with when he traveled. He was over in the Middle East for a while, and he came home, and 9 months later, he had Mohammed O'Brien. He was up in Detroit. He had to go up there to a couple breweries and check things out. He stayed inner city while he was up there. Kind of went to a couple clubs and everything. He came home 9 months later. He had Tupac O'Brien. Now at the end, he had to name the last one Vincent. And all the proceeds tonight go to St. Vincent de Paul Society. I think part of the reason that was is he kept drinking all the profits and they had to help raise his kids. He was out one weekend, this is a true story. He got out there on Friday and he got a couple bars and he's promoting the beer and things are going well and everybody got him fired up. And next thing he knew, it was about 11 o'clock at night. He said, "Oh, I can't go home now," so they let him stay all night in the pub. He got up the next day, dancing didn't start again. Same thing happened. He didn't get home until Sunday night. He walked in. Mary Jane said, "Well, where the hell have you been? You spent your money. You done this, you done that, and everything." And he's hangover. He feels terrible. She said, "How would you like it? You didn't see me for 3 days." He said, "That'd be just fine." Monday come by, he didn't see her. Tuesday come by, he didn't see her. Wednesday, his left eye opened just a little bit. You're telling me all these guys that are 6'3" and 200 pounds are his kids. I have to get They said as he lived here earlier, Gene got married late in life. He was 35 years old. That's supposed to be an old Irish tradition. You know what the truth is? He's short. He's ugly. He's a beer salesman. Who the hell would want to marry him? He was the only Irish kid in the neighborhood that had a dowry. From 21 to 35, his parents had to keep putting money in every year. Poor Mary Jane come along, her family was destitute. They arranged a marriage, took the money, rest is history. She turned out to be so sweet they named it Candy after her. Your
you're going straight to heaven. No purgatory, no nothing. I got one true story. Actually, it is true. Several years ago, I don't remember how many, it's been a few years ago, they have a Catholic businessmen's luncheon at St. Pat's. And I was at one, and Gene happened to show up about the time I did, so I ushered him all the way to the back of the table so he wouldn't bother everybody talking. We had two speakers in the house. It was like stereo speakers, Gene and one. So we're sitting there, you know, and of course he's talking to me, and there was a luncheon where they named the Catholic Man of the Year. Well, they said, well, they said people that are here that got nominated for that, we'd like you to stand up and be recognized. And Gene leans over me and he said, you know, I got nominated for this one time. He said, but I didn't have enough money to win it. So he didn't know it, but I was being nominated. So, I do say that's one of the highlights of my life. So they introduced everybody, and so I'm stood next to Gene, and I stand up, you know, and of course I didn't get it. They named who it was, and I sat down, and he never said, you ain't got enough money. That's a true story. Well, I think I've done enough damage. I do have another thing in common with Gene. When I was born, my name was O'Brien, and I've never seen my father. And if I could go back and pick somebody named O'Brien to be my father, I'd pick this man right here. Mike McConaughey, thank you, Michael. We had a friend.
Robert.
Robert.
Don't bring whatever.
I know it's one or the other. I was going to flip a coin, but I got two heads on this one. Okay, we'd like to bring up now Robert, call me Bob, right?
Like Joe said, I'm pitch hitting tonight for my brother home. They needed someone, and since I'm Gene's son, like Gene, I've never met a microphone I didn't like. Now, one thing, like I say, your program says Vince O'Brien. Please do not confuse me with Vince O'Brien. Please. The last time that happened, his wife got pregnant. I just want to make a few comments. I made some quick notes here. I want to make my brother Victor seem like a man of few words. But one thing my dad always taught me, stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, and sit down to be appreciated. Now anyone that knows my dad knows he really didn't get the last part quite right. And neither have my brothers that are speaking tonight. A lot of people ask me what it was like growing up as Gene's son. With 11 kids running around, you had to share everything. I mean, nothing, your clothes, everything, bed. You always, when you went to bed at night, there's always someone in there. Someone in there. You never wanted to get in bed with Mickey though, he went to bed. Slept with that was worse than all the others. The most confusing day of the year, Father's Day. My dad, as everyone knows, has been very generous. He always gives his time to St. Vincent de Paul. And that's not because my mom wants to get him out of the house. Even when we were little, I remember my dad, even had all his kids, would go down to the orphanage and help out. I always thought he was just being very generous. It wasn't until I was an adult I realized he was trying to leave us. He remembers when the Dead Sea wasn't even sick. But, he's had a few health problems lately. He had the heart catheterization, stroke, the gallbladder. He can't afford to lose anything else. I was talking to my mom once, and I said, Mom, after all those illnesses Dad's had, is there still romance? And my mom said, what's romance? I said, after all these years, there was still a love life. And my mom goes, you mean sex? I was shocked. My mom says, why do you look so shocked? Because I said the word sex? I said, no, I'm just surprised you remembered it after all these years. My mom says, don't ever underestimate your father. She said, even with all those illnesses, he's still able to have Olympic sex. I said, Olympic sex? She said, yes, every 4 years. I said, Mom, what Olympic sport would it be like? Wrestling? Boxing? Maybe rhythm gymnastics. And my mom says, no, it's more like the 100-yard dash. I said, the 100-yard dash? Why the 100-yard dash? And she said, because after 10 seconds, it's going to be over. To the greatest Olympian I know, reigning sprint champion, I just want to thank him for agreeing to run the 100-yard dash. Without his proudness and my mom's cooperation, this night would not be possible. Thank you very much.